Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of The Prosperous Musician. My name is Spence, where we talk money, music and marketing. Okay, on today's video, I'm doing daily videos, by the way, and I've been doing a daily challenge really for me of how to get $100 or £100 every day online, and you can check those videos out on my on the playlist here. I'm taking a little break from that today, and talking a bit more about music, as it all. After all, this is the Prosperous Musician. So I'm a professional musician, and that's one of my income streams, and I'm obviously working on the online thing as well with the Power Lead system. But just going back to the what I'm doing primarily. So I'm a musician, and I play gigs and I teach, but also I do busking as well. And I found busking to be a really good way of getting instant cash flow. Also a great way of practicing in public, to getting gigs, putting yourself out there, and general all-round good practice. And there's obviously so many different ways you can do it, depending on what kind of act you are. I'm more of a singer-songwriter type, just me and the guitar, and I do some looping as well. So yeah, if you're out there as well and you're either just starting busking, or if you're already busking and you're looking at ways to sort of maximize your earnings, then I've got 7 tips for you coming right up. Tip number 1 is to get a crowd. Now, nothing gets people going like a crowd. Would you agree? I'll move myself out of the way here. So this is a picture of me, actually. There's me, they're busking, and this is a little crowd here. So it's a great way to get people to stop and to pay attention, because if there's a certain amount of people watching you, then more people will stop. They won't know why they're stopping. They'll just stop because everyone else is doing it. People will be kind of like a herd mentality. So if you can get a crowd, that's great. Sometimes it's hard to do that if it's just you on your own, but hopefully the music will sort of do that as well. But there is ways of doing it as well. If you're on your own, you can call people in. Another good way is if families and the young kids who want to sometimes sing, that's a great way of pulling people in. And I've done that before, and the high street has just basically stopped in front of me, and everyone watched this little kid singing. So that's a great way of getting attention as well. Or any way you can pull people in. Maybe you're kind of serenading somebody, or whether it's the kind of song you're doing or the kind of performance. But don't be afraid to pull people in and to get people to stop. And sometimes it's easier than others, but get a crowd is the one to get going. So the other one is kind of create a stage where you are. Now, it might not be that you, obviously you can't build the stage necessarily, but you can, there's easily ways you can put, I mean, I haven't done it here, but you can put like a rope around here to, sort of create a boundary. And also it's kind of, you could put a rug on the floor. You could basically create a spot so you kind of, so it looks more like a stage area, and people kind of respond to that a bit more. There's also ways, again, of putting like a merchandise tab, if you've got enough merchandise, CDs, things like that. Stick it out on a table, stick it out on a case. So just make it look a purposeful area. Now, it's not always, I haven't done it on this clip because I haven't got that full rig, but there are people, and bands tend to do that a lot as well, and they can create a proper stage, busking bands, and they usually have little kind of bins where you can put the money in for CDs. So it's just about how much you want to scale up your show, but that's another way you can sort of maximize your earnings. So number 3 is kind of, I mean, this is playing in the day, but there's also a way you can playing more at night. So if there's places that are quite busy, there are a lot of bars around, or clubs, restaurants, then often, particularly in the summer, people are wandering around, they're in a good mood, they're usually a bit tipsy. That can be a great time to play. You know, it's not always where you play, it's sometimes when you play as well. So consider that. Sometimes it might be a bit challenging if you get big groups of drunk people who maybe want to take over or try and sing on the mic. It can get a bit sort of physical sometimes, but generally most people are pretty good natured, and you can often make a lot more money that way, because groups will often throw money in, like proper folding stuff, because they're out for the night, they've got a pocket full of cash, and they're in a good mood and they want to join in. So consider that as well. Consider busking more at night time. So for the fourth one, I'd say American money here. I couldn't find a picture of one with English money. So instead of just using the standard guitar case, it's a good idea to actually have a tip jar. So this one might be a plastic one so it doesn't get smashed. And obviously you can write whatever you like on it, but maybe put a clear call to action that this is where you want people to put their money. And also before you start, it's a great idea to, like this here, stuff it full of money. So you could put 5s, 10s, 20s in, put some like pound coins or, whatever denomination you're in, whatever country you're in, make it look like already there's money going on, there's stuff happening, because people don't want to see you kind of with nothing in your case. It's just a bit sad, really. So it's called sweetening the pot, so make sure you put a bit of money in there. And if you don't want to risk putting high denomination in there, you could always use kind of fake money. After all, it's just a prop, really. So that could be another way of enticing people or encouraging people to tip more. Number 5, I'd say, would be to get people to sign up to your mailing list. So how would you do that? So you can have a sign on there with people to your website, so people can sign up straight away on their phones, or you could have a clipboard with a pen attached next to your merch stand and encourage people to come and sign up. Now, you might not get many sign-ups, but even if you get 1 or 2 a day, that could be the difference. That could be those 1 or 2 people could end up being raving fans that could end up buying everything you do, come to all your gigs and really support you, maybe support you recording your next album. So yeah, it's always worth having a way of capturing people's details, because often people will come and maybe take a picture of your sign so they can get in touch with you, but then there's no way of getting in touch with them, you see. So when you can, and again, it might not be possible if you're on your own, but if you can get a way of getting people's contact details, that's great. It might mean that you do shorter sets, so you might do 4 songs and then stop and then start to talk to people. If a crowd's developed, like you've got the crowd in the beginning, talk to people as they're waiting, and encourage them to sign up. Maybe have a free giveaway, maybe have some CDs that you give away in exchange for a sign up. So that's kind of a bit more of an exchange. So yeah, consider the mailing list. So number 6 is, so it takes 2. All I mean by that is that, again, if you're like me, a solo performer, it might be worth getting someone to come along as an assistant. Now, what they might do is, while you're playing, and if you're trying to build up a crowd, if they're particularly outgoing themselves, then they could go around with a clipboard, they could have CDs, and they could have some giveaways, and they could be getting people's, and a tip jar, obviously. So when people are standing and watching, they can come up to them and ask them to sign up or give a tip. Now, this has happened for me. I've been in London, Covent Garden, and just watching a quartet playing in the courtyard. And then next thing I know, someone came up to me and was saying, "Oh, would you like to give them a tip? They're good, aren't they?" It's really hard to say no, if you're clearly standing there and enjoying the music. It's much more effective than most people just walk past without thinking. But if people confront somebody and say, "Look, would you be prepared to tip, or would you sign up?" then people are much more likely to do that because they're being asked to do it. And then obviously you can share the money, or you can pay them a fixed fee depending on how much you get. So that's another one to consider, maybe getting an assistant. I would say it would be to pick your spot. Now, most people, when they're starting off, they want to go to the most obvious spots in a city centre. They want to go the most in the middle of the high street. And that can work. It depends on what kind of act you are, but generally, high streets, particularly at the weekend, can be so saturated with too many people, too many buskers, too much competition, basically. So it's not always the best place to play. I often find going to the smaller towns where there's a lot less competition, you're more likely to stand out. So try that. There's also places like farmers markets, and also in England, things called car boot sales, where generally it's like a field where people sell stuff out the back of their cars. It might be worth trying there, because generally there's no musical acts there. People are walking around, but you've just got a lot of cash in their pockets. So it could be a good opportunity for you to play there as well. And often with farmers markets, not so sure about car boot sales, but they tend to have a budget as well for things like that. So it might be worth, if you see a farmers market, or ringing one up and saying, would you be willing to pay me for a couple of hours and they usually do anything between £30, £70, depending on if you're a solo or a duo, and depending on the day or the size of the market. And also you'll find that these markets tend to be a chain, or they tend to have like 3 or 4 sites. So if you get in with one and you do well, then you can be invited to the others. And also it's about engaging with the market stall owners, because it's not necessarily engaging with the punters, the customers. It's more, if the market stall owners like you, then you will get asked back. If they don't like you, even if you're very good, if they don't like you, then it only takes one of them to complain and you won't be asked back. So that's something to consider as well. What I've found at farmers markets is, though, if you're not getting paid by them, sometimes people can assume that you are, so they don't tip as much because they think you're already getting paid. And that might be the case, but sometimes I've found in my own experience that you don't get as many tips. Having said that, if you've got merchandise to sell, then obviously if you're in a market, you might sell more merchandise and you actually get tips for playing, if that makes sense. So it's always worth a try. And yeah, it's always worth trying to find places that aren't as saturated or obvious as a town centre, as a city centre on a Saturday afternoon. So there you go. There's some tips for you. I hope I hope they make some sense for you. I hope you maybe try them out if you haven't tried them already. And also drop me a link below, comment below which ones work for you, which ones are you going to try out. And please, if you did enjoy this video, please like, subscribe and share. And I will see you on the next one.